Join me as I dive into the challenge of having the most honest and open conversations about relationship boundaries, and see if we can tackle those tough topics together. Healthy relationships are built on a foundation of trust, respect, and open communication. And at the heart of it all is the concept of boundaries, the invisible lines that define what we're comfortable with and what we're not. When we can discuss our boundaries openly and honestly with our partners, friends, and family, we open ourselves up to deeper connections, better understanding, and a more joyful experience of life. But what happens when we don't communicate our boundaries? When we assume that others will just know what we want and need, or when we're too afraid to speak up for fear of rejection or conflict? We end up with resentment, hurt feelings, and a whole lot of conflict. We've all been there, feeling taken advantage of, disrespected, or just plain frustrated because we didn't set those boundaries from the start. Maybe you've been in a relationship where your partner assumed you were okay with doing something that you actually hated. Or perhaps you felt guilty saying no to a friend's request because you didn't want to hurt their feelings. Whatever the situation, when we don't define and communicate our boundaries, we risk feeling like we're walking on eggshells, never really knowing what's expected of us or what we're getting ourselves into. And then there are the digital boundaries, the ones that get crossed when we overshare or overexpect from our online connections. Have you ever felt like you're drowning in a sea of social media notifications, or like you're constantly comparing your life to someone else's highlight reel? When we don't set digital boundaries, we risk losing ourselves in the noise of the online world. When we talk about boundaries, we often think about the physical ones, the personal space we need to feel comfortable, the touch that makes us feel uneasy, the topics we'd rather not discuss. But emotional boundaries are just as important. Have you ever felt like you're carrying the emotional weight of someone else's problems, or like you're constantly trying to fix someone else's drama? When we don't set emotional boundaries, we risk losing ourselves in the process of trying to help others. Establishing physical boundaries can be as simple as setting aside alone time, creating a morning routine that works for you, or communicating your comfort level with physical touch. Emotional boundaries might look like taking time to process your own emotions before reacting to someone else's, or learning to say no to commitments that drain your energy. And digital boundaries can be as simple as setting screen time limits, muting notifications, or taking breaks from social media. I want to share a story with you that really drove home the importance of having open discussions about boundaries for me. I was in a relationship where I felt like I was constantly walking on eggshells, never really knowing what would trigger my partner's anger or disappointment. I felt like I was losing myself in the process of trying to avoid conflict. One day, I realized that I needed to have an honest conversation with my partner about my boundaries, what I was comfortable with, what I wasn't, and what I needed to feel respected and loved. It was a tough conversation to have, but it ended up being a game changer for our relationship. We learned to communicate more openly, to respect each other's boundaries, and to build a stronger foundation of trust and understanding. In conclusion, establishing and respecting boundaries is a crucial part of building healthy, happy relationships. Whether it's emotional, physical, or digital, setting those boundaries and communicating them openly is key to avoiding conflict, building trust, and fostering deeper connections. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope this video has encouraged you to think more deeply about your own boundaries and how you can communicate them more effectively in your relationships. If you've got a story to share about a time when setting boundaries made a big difference in your life, I'd love to hear it in the comments below. And don't forget to check out my other videos on relationship topics. I've got a ton of content that might just help you navigate those tricky conversations and build the relationships you deserve.